B550 motherboards are finally here, and with them the ability to build your own epic gaming computer for not very much money, but with so many features that you would definitely think that it would cost a whole lot more. So in this video we're going to be doing just that, putting together a little gaming PC here that's very much budget orientated. We do have a B550 motherboard here, so we're going to go through all of the pros and cons of grabbing one of these, and as always we're going to show you the whole process, all of the parts, and I'll be showing you the full performance numbers so you know exactly what to expect if you do decide to go for a PC that's similar to this. But first, meet the NZXT Kraken family, the smartest all-in-one CPU coolers on the planet. NZXT's Kraken X series features an RGB infinite mirror to make your PC look incredible, while top quality fans, a quiet yet effective pump, and large radiators keeps your PC running cool and quiet. Step up to the Kraken Z, however, and you'll get a fully customizable screen to show off your real-time temperatures and statistics, hordes of RGB lighting, or even your favorite GIFs. Grab yours today with the link down below. So we're going to start with all of the parts that's actually featured in this PC. The case we're going for here is from Be Quiet. It is the brand new 500DX, and like all new cases, it's very much available for the RRP, which is around about £80–90, but I'd wager if you give it a couple of months it will probably stoop down to around about the £75–80 mark. The CPU that we have here is a Ryzen 3 3300X. This is actually a Ryzen 9 box because my sample didn't come with one, so we're just going to have to pretend for now. But this is a really exciting processor because if you're wanting to build a very budget orientated rig, then you get 4 cores, 8 threads, something that can run pretty much any game without any issues, and is available for a very, very good price. Now yes, you can definitely go for something higher end. It's going to give you a bit more headroom, and in games like Battlefield 5 you might start to run into a little bit of bottlenecking, as we'll see later, but for the vast majority of games and the vast majority of people, I don't think you're really going to need any more than this. Now the motherboard is a little bit of an interesting one because at the time of filming this, I still don't know the final pricing for these boards, and if you do want to check it out, by the way, links to all of these things are going to be with my Amazon affiliate links listed down below. But rumour has it at the moment these things are going to be a lot more expensive than B450. And bearing in mind you can use a B450 motherboard with this CPU, should you go for B550 or not? Well, realistically, I think it depends what you're actually trying to achieve. If you just want a gaming PC for the minimum cost possible, then grab the B450 version of this motherboard, and I will leave that links down below rather than this one. But if you're someone that does want to upgrade your PC, or you sort of want to buy a motherboard that's going to last you for years and years, then these actually come with PCI Generation 4 support, which is going to be great for future graphics cards, and is going to be perfect as well if you want to use super fast NVMe SSD storage like we see in the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox One, or the Xbox Series X, I should say. Something that isn't going to add a huge amount of cost to your rig though is the graphics card, because this is the 1650 Super, and this is a really exciting bit of kit, to be honest. And this pretty much unlocks any game really at pretty much high to ultra settings depending on your resolution, and you can play things that are a bit easier like your Civilizations, your Planet Zoos, but all the way up to Battlefield 5, one of the best looking games at the moment. This handles it with ease. It's a really exciting bit of kit, and yes, it's not going to cope with 4K resolution, but I think you probably already knew that. Really, really cool bit of kit, that one actually. Now we're using a SSD for our boot drive. This is a BX500 from Crucial, and we're also pairing this with a standard 2TB Western Digital Blue hard drive. You don't necessarily need to go for this exact amount of storage. Realistically, I'd probably recommend going for a 500 gig SSD and then maybe like a 1 or 2 terabyte hard drive as well, or just get a big SSD. It pretty much depends how big your existing game library is. Now this is the stage in the video where you probably notice there is only a single stick of memory in this system, which yes, is going to run slower in single channel mode. What's he doing? Has he lost the other stick? Or maybe he's lost his mind. He's gone crazy, but that happened a long time ago. We know that already. So I think 16 should be the target, and it makes more sense to get one fairly cheap stick of 8GB now, rather than paying more for 2 sticks of 4, just waiting a month and then grabbing another one. And then you've got 16GB of memory. It's a really easy upgrade to make, and later down the line, you then have a max of 32 gig available rather than 16 if you went for 4GB DIMMs. In terms of the speed that we're running at here, well, this is obviously running in single channel mode, but this is a 3000 MHz stick of RAM. So You can go for faster if you find it available for a very good price, but I think 3000 megahertz should be your target really, and is going to enable to play games at their fastest possible frame rates. In terms of the power supply that we're using, sorry to be boring, but we have used this in the last couple of builds, and I'll be totally honest, the main reason for this is not only because this offers great value for money, it's semi-modular, so it's going to tidy up your build, and it's bronze rated, all for a good price, but also because I don't actually have many power supplies here in the studio. So I'm just as bored as you are when it comes to this power supply. I'm sorry. So consider this one, but I will leave something a bit cheaper down in the description below if you do want to check that out. But I think that is actually all of the parts available for this. We're not putting any extra RGB in it because we've got the strip down the front, and the strip comes included in the case as standard. And I would like to point out as well that if you do spend a little bit more on the case and grab something like this, then you get the benefit of having 3 fans fitted as standard that are already pretty quiet, as well as that RGB, whereas if you dropped down something around about £30 less, you are going to miss out on those features, and you're going to have to sort of add them in later anyway. But without further ado, here is the build process. Let's go. We start our journey as always with our motherboard, so give it a good grab. This is a really pretty motherboard actually. I mean, look at that. You do get a bit of AMD red or ROG red on the board, which I'm sure the branding team loved. You've even got a little readout LED that you can use for decoding any areas that hopefully you don't get. Simply lift up the lever on the motherboard, grab your CPU, find the little gold arrow on the motherboard and line it up with the little gold indicator on the CPU. Drop that in place with no force at all, and then you just secure it with the lever again. RAM is just as simple. It tells you what slots to use on the motherboard. So here we're going to use B2 and A2, or at least we would if we had 2 sticks of RAM. Because we've only got 1, I just drop that in gently into the slots. You'll know if you've got it right because you'll hear this nice audible click. If you don't, turn it round, make sure it actually lines up, and it should fit in nice and easily. Then you grab your CPU cooler, line it up against the holes and screw it down. Always do all of your screwing in a cross pattern though, as this stops any excess force appearing on the motherboard. And you don't want to use excess force now, do you? Well, that sounds really creepy. Once you've done that, you then need to grab this little dangly fan cable, find the grey CPU fan header that's on the top of the motherboard, and then just plug that in. Again, no force required, maybe tidy up the cable a little bit, and then you'll have pretty much a finished computer. We just need to add a graphics card and, you know, the case and the power supply and all of the other stuff. Easy. Now it's time to actually grab our case that we put aside earlier and start to take it apart, which should be fairly simple. And you'll find that there is a little box of goodies with all of the screws and things you need quite often in the hard drive bay of your case. We now need to grab our motherboard and put it into this little hole here. If we are using an ATX motherboard, like I do have here, then all of the standoffs are actually pre-applied. So we just need to grab our case, lay it down flat, and now insert it so that the I/O actually fits in that huge hole at the back of the case. Should be very, very easy to do. And then we just use the screws that come with the case to screw it down into place. Once you've completed that, it's then time to actually start talking about the rest of the things that you need to plug in. All of these little cables here, you plug into the motherboard. So we've got things like a very big USB 3.0. We've even got Type-C, which is nice on this particular case. And then things like audio, all of the button combinations, all of that good stuff. We'll plug those in a second, but now we need to actually take this little hard drive bay out here with these thumb screws. Once you've done this, grab your little hard drive combination and then you can slide that back into place. Our SSD is just as easy to install. You can see it is a whole lot smaller, and in some cases it will just sort of slide in with a quick release, but here we do actually need to take this whole caddy out. So just find our little hidey hole, and just like magic, look, that screws back in, almost as if it's been designed this way. Now comes the time to actually route all of these cables that I was mentioning earlier into their respective places. And they all do say exactly on the actual cable what they are, so it should be pretty self-explanatory. You just might need to check your motherboard manual to see where all of the different headers are. Rather unhelpfully on this Asus motherboard though, HD audio on this board says, what does it even say? It says AAPF, which I suppose stands for something audio front panel, but How are you supposed to know that if you've never built a PC before, huh? You'll probably notice that we now have 3 cables remaining. This is for SATA power. This is to actually power all of the case lighting, I believe. This is to control the case lighting. So this goes onto the motherboard. It's called an addressable RGB cable. And then here we have our power switch and power LED cable. Now we want to do the fans, which you can see are all nicely bundled up for us. These are very similar, well, they are identical looking to the CPU fan that we connected earlier. So these are 3-pin rather than 4-pin, but there's a little notch on it, so you can't plug it in wrong very easily. You just need to find the fan headers on the motherboard. Depending on the motherboard you go, will vary the amount that you have. So you see next to this CPU fan header here, look, there's one that says water pump and one that says CPU optional. So I'm going to plug this into CPU optional very carefully. You can probably see at this stage that it doesn't matter too much what order you do things in. Just remember that the more you build things up, the harder things can be in the future to actually plug things in. So you wouldn't want to plug your graphics card in till the very end, because that might block the SATA port, which is what we're plugging in now. So this is the cable that we retrieved from our motherboard box. It's dual-ended, very, very simple. It plops in and then there's a little like release catch on it that you press to get things out. So plug that into one end of your SSD. There's only one port that it will fit into, very simple. And then bring your PC cable around so that you can actually plug it into one of these SATA ports. Oh, it's getting hot in here, isn't it? Socks off, ladies and gentlemen. Socks off. Just imagine the smell of my feet right now. Oh, lovely. We are properly cooking on gas now. It is the penultimate part, which is the 650 watt Xilinx PSU. You're probably so bored of it by now. How many times have I talked about this thing? But it's good, and it's red. It matches AMD themes, so you can take your comments. You know where you can put them? In the comment section down below. Let me know what you think of this build. This is one of those cases I talked about a couple of weeks ago, where we actually have a little slidey hole. But you grab this little bracket off the back of the PC, and then you actually put that on top of the power supply, and then the whole thing slides in. Cool. Trying not to tangle our cables up too much, grab the very large 24-pin ATX, and then the CPU, which is an 8-pin, and you want to plug these in now. So the CPU goes all the way at the top corner, then grab the chunky boy and pass that through nearer the top. And then again, there's only one correct way of doing it, so don't use too much force, but you just plug these things over the holes, push them in until they click, and do the same then with this CPU one at the top. Now we have the appropriate amount of SATA cables. You just need to grab one end, it's shaped like a little L, and again, find where you need to plug it in and gently push it in till it clicks into place. Do the same with the hard drive so that that's got power as well, which then leaves us with the most exciting bit, which is plugging in the graphics card. Take off the PCIe covers for the slots that you're actually going to be populating, which in my particular case, and yours will almost certainly be the same, are slots number 2 and slots number 3. Then grab your graphics card. There might be a little bit of plastic covers or something on it that you can take off if you haven't already, and then just line it up with our slot. And it should just be a case of pushing it in till it clicks. There you go, you heard that. Easy peasy. Just don't forget to use these screws to secure it in place. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. And then the very last thing we need to do is grab this little PCIe connector for our graphics card and slot that in, and that's it. Obviously we do need to tidy up, make everything look as neat as possible, but as I always say, it makes sense to test your PC first to make sure it works, and then do your cable management. Otherwise you could spend hours making it look pretty and find something that's wrong. So here we go then, our little tests. I'm gonna put this next to my personal, and plug in as much as possible. Oh, and don't forget to plug the display port or HDMI into the graphics card, not the motherboard, or it won't work. So here we go, moment of truth. We've got some spinning, we've got some RAM light stuff. We've got error codes, so at least we should be able to work out if something goes wrong. But as always, we're just looking for something to come up on screen and hopefully say, press delete to continue or press F1 or something. And then we can set everything up and start installing Windows. If that doesn't happen, then we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board and work out what's not working. But it's doing something at the moment, fingers crossed. Hey, Republic of Gamers! Yes. And here we are rocking Fortnite. And before you get worried about the resolution of this display, we're going to be testing today 2560 by 1080 and 1080p, as these are both resolutions I think are pretty relevant to a gaming PC like this. And you can see already we're getting around about 80, 90 frames a second, which is really impressive. And I think if you want to grab yourself one of those budget ultra-wide monitors, this PC is absolutely going to crush it for you. It really is. Dropping down the resolution to 1080p, and of course this is probably what you're going to choose to play at. And here we're getting a silky smooth minimum of around about 100 frames a second, and we're getting peaks of around about 120. So you can see high refresh rate gaming on a budget PC these days is still very, very doable, no doubt about that. Ooh, yes! And there's another guy again. This happens every single video. Next up, Apex Legends, and dropping in, we usually get a slightly lower frame rate than when we land, and we're currently hovering around about 60 frames a second. This is running at more or less ultra settings though, so I would definitely lower down a couple of settings further just to increase that frame rate to get a magic 60 frames a second. Drop it down to 1080p though, and things are definitely a lot more along the lines of what I would really like to play at. So you can see we're getting minimums now of 75 frames a second, and most of us are probably going to be playing on a 60 Hz monitor anyway. General gameplay, you're looking at around about anywhere between 85 and 100 frames a second. As there is a guy, can I actually prove that this PC can get kills? Oh, there's a full squad. This is not going to happen. I haven't reloaded. It's a disaster area. It's a disaster area and I'm dead. No kills. This PC can't do it. Moving across to the best looking game in our arsenal, we have Battlefield 5. And I'll tell you straight away, we are getting a little bit of stutter where I'm recording at the same time. We're definitely maxing out this PC's capabilities, but even so, we're still getting around about 70, 80 frames a second as I get epically mowed down by a sniper, was that? I don't even know these days. Turning the resolution down to 1080p, and interestingly we're not seeing such a huge increase. And I reckon the reason for this all comes down to that CPU, as while it is very, very capable, I think the combination of 8GB of RAM and a quad-core processor probably isn't the most ideal sort of combo really for Battlefield, because it is a very intense game to run. That's not to say this isn't running smoothly, because it really is. Even while recording like we're doing now, I've scaled it down to around about 1080p resolution, but I've also opened up Task Manager, and you can see that our CPU usage is very much at 100% right now, and our memory is at 94. And we're not actually using our GPU to its full potential, so upgrading the processor to something slightly faster, overclocking it, grabbing a little bit more memory will yield a better result in Battlefield, but even so, you're still getting a very, very playable experience, no doubt about it. Just be aware that we're slightly bottlenecked. And then finally, we have Planet Zoo, a game I've been playing a lot recently, and you can see compared to the last video, my zoo has expanded. I've got a lot more animals and things in here now. And this is a game that I just love because it really shows off what PC gaming is all about. It works so well with a mouse and keyboard, and it's very customizable. At the moment, we're getting around about 65 frames a second at 2560 by 1080. So if you're rocking a standard 1080p display, obviously you're going to get a little bit more than that. The graphics on this, even at high, look fantastic. I mean, look how cute he is. Look how cute that is, it's a little wolf. So this was the ultimate budget gaming PC 2020, or at least that's what I'd planned, but I think due to the price of this motherboard and the fact that we can make a few more tweaks to bring the price down a little bit lower, this is not the ultimate budget PC 2020, but it's still a very good one. If you're interested in any of the parts featured, you can find them all listed down below. And while you're down there, of course, don't forget to check out the awesome NZXT Kraken CPU Coolers. Take your PC to the next level with some serious cooling smarts, allowing you to use the very best components and keep your temperatures and acoustics in check. But why not go even further? and add some crazy RGB effects to your PC with the Kraken X series, or never guess again with Kraken Z's real-time statistics. Grab your next cooler in all shapes and sizes with the links down below. Be really interested to hear from you on this one. What would you do to this PC to either make it slightly faster within the same sort of budget, or to bring the price down? Don't forget to get subscribed if you've enjoyed this video. It really would mean the world to me, and it of course means that you get all of these builds delivered straight to your inbox as soon as they're available. If you have enjoyed it though, please hit the like button. It helps out so much, you really wouldn't believe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.